A massive recruiting haul for Brian Kelly this weekend, and Jay Johnson lands another ace pitcher out of the portal. It's Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU. I'm your host, Matt Moscona, so thrilled to have you aboard with us, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available however you get podcasts, and of course, on YouTube. So please subscribe up on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review, let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single weekday and weekends as well for bonus content, of course, on YouTube here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. Okay, we got a ton to get into after a massive weekend. If you caught our bonus content, I gave you some really in-depth vantage points on what LSU did with each of the commitments they got in football over the weekend, but we're going to give you the flyover here, and then we got some baseball to talk about. Jay Johnson landed an ace pitcher and a couple of more portal targets that I want to tell you about today's episode. Brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down, sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. It's pretty incredible. Go to the FanDuel app, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. You'll see all the boosts at the top of the page. This summer, FanDuel hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Okay, let's delve into this, and I want to open with Brian Kelly's weekend. As I mentioned, if you were here for bonus content over the weekend, I kind of gave you the in-depth view, but I want to do the flyover here for those that might have missed what happened this weekend. So LSU had Friday Night Lights, big recruiting event. Some current Tigers were out there, including Garrett Nussmeier. His younger brother was taking part in the event. And then some prospects for 2025, 2026, and beyond, all there for Friday Night Lights in Tiger Stadium. Very cool event to see it go down the way it did. And the biggest news is that Bryce Underwood was there. And look, this past week, we saw the Elite 11 took place, and there was a lot of peacocking from fans on a lot of social media. The Alabama commit, Keelan Russell, won the MVP of the Elite 11. But that is an incomplete because Bryce Underwood wasn't there. Bryce Underwood said, instead of going and competing at the Elite 11, throwing against air and, T-shirts and shorts, I'm going to go to Tiger Stadium. I'm going to fly with my family on my dime. Bryce Underwood, again, this was an unofficial visit. So Bryce Underwood and his family flew down on their dime to Baton Rouge so he could be here for Friday Night Lights, hooking up with Harlem Berry on wheel routes, helping recruit the class of 2025 and beyond. Having some synergy with his coaches and future teammates. You got to love to see that. That's the massive news, because the biggest fish in the pond, of course, is Bryce Underwood. He's the number one player in the country for 2025. He's from Michigan. He's committed to LSU. He said LSU was his dream school since he was 12 years old. The Tigers did an amazing job. Hat tip Joe Sloan for getting that done. He got the commit in January, but they got to hold it. They got to hold that commitment all the way till November, when he can formally sign and then get on campus as an early enrollee. So Bryce Underwood coming back down on his own dime was massive. But it didn't stop there. LSU got a commitment on Friday night from Richard Anderson. Richard Anderson became the first commitment for the class of 2026. So he's a rising high school junior. He's out of Edna Carr in New Orleans, 6'3.5", 325. He is a high four-star. Ranked as high as the number 117 overall player in the country, the 9th best defensive lineman by On3, and that 2026 crop in Louisiana, where he had 7 players in 2026 from Louisiana inside the top 100, 5 inside the top 50, 3 inside the top 15. You got to get those players to stay home, and that was a good start getting Richard Anderson. And remember, LSU's got to rebuild and replenish that defensive line room, and that was a good start to it. So Saturday rolls around, and they got Saturday started with another 2026 commit and wide receiver Ja'Kai Anderson. He's out of McDonough 35 in New Orleans, 6 foot 160. The caveat on Ja'Kai Anderson is he's a 3-star safety, but he's committed as a wide receiver. So when you look at his recruiting profile, he's graded out as a safety, but you got to keep in mind this is a guy who just finished his sophomore year of high school. He's got 2 more years of high school. 6 foot, 160 pounds. Again, just finished up his sophomore year of high school. So he'll continue growing, developing, and playing more receiver, which is where LSU projects him. And we've seen that plenty over the years. Guys who play one position in high school, but they project differently in the college level. Famously, Josh Reed was a guy who was a running back at Rain High School, came to LSU, switched to receiver, became a Biletnikoff Award winner. So you got your second commit there, and got another kid out of the New Orleans area. And don't sleep on that. The fact that LSU has built up this staff of elite level recruiters with ties to Louisiana, you can see how fruitful it already is with all of these kids from Louisiana popping for LSU. But they weren't done. The Tigers went out of state for their next commit, and this was a 2025 prospect in Jesse Harold. Jesse Harold's out of Tampa, 6'5", 207. He's a 4-star edge. In the composite, he's ranked as the number 100 overall prospect, but On3 ranks him as the 66th best prospect. 247 rates him as the 73rd best prospect. Effectively, ESPN has him 209. They're like out in left field, so whatever, ESPN. Bottom line is a massive edge rusher for LSU. And again, if you're going to go outside of Louisiana, you don't have to stray far. But if you're going to get the number 66 overall player in the country who's an edge rusher out of Tampa, okay, I'm good with that. I'm good going to Tampa and getting a top 100 player nationally to come off the edge. So that's what Brian Kelly and the staff were able to do. So as you look at it right now, that 2025 class, again, I would always recommend, if you're looking at recruiting rankings, class rankings, look at On3, because On3 weights their rankings based on quality over quantity. I share this all the time. Like last year, Colorado in the portal had 40 commits out of the portal. Well, when you have 40 commitments, of course, your rating is going to be higher because you have more players. So On3, they'll average out the number of commits used in the average is about 12 commits that they'll use. So you look at Ohio State, 3 5-stars, 10 4-stars, LSU 2 5-stars, 9 4-stars. That's the top two teams. Bama's third. We got no 5-stars, but 13 4-stars and 5 3-stars. LSU's got 1 3-star committed. So Bama already has 18 commits in their class. LSU with just 12 commits is outpacing Alabama because, again, quality over quantity. And that's something that continues to show itself here with this LSU class for 2025. And remember, 2026 is the bumper crop year in Louisiana, where LSU is absolutely going to have to make sure that they put a fence around the state with guys like Jakeem Stewart, who's the number 3 overall player in the country. You got Blaine Bradford at Catholic, who's the number 15 overall player in the country. You got offensive linemen at both U-High and East Ascension, who are both in the top 50 in America. Like, you have absolutely got to put a fence around the state for 2026. And that's the kind of class that you can use to build around and build a national championship roster. But here in 2025, to build around Bryce Underwood and Harlan Berry, it's a great start so far. And Tigers need to get more on the defensive side. They started to do that with Jesse Harold out of Tampa, Florida. Okay, y'all. That's a flyover again. If you want the more detailed look at each of those commitments, go back to our bonus coverage from this past weekend, just the previous 2 episodes. You'll see it. And I gave you a deeper dive on each of the commitments and what they mean and how they fit in the roster and all that good stuff. But a really massive recruiting weekend for Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers with Friday Night Lights, and a massive weekend for LSU. Okay, we're going to step aside briefly. When we come back, Jay Johnson got another portal ace, and they are doing work in the portal, especially on the mound. We'll get to that next right here on Locked On LSU, your team every day. Look, I love sports. I love sports so much that I never want them to stop. But the playoffs wind down. We get fewer games. College World Series will come to an end on Monday. Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 will come to an end on Monday. All the sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood, and this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Of course, you can bet on Major League Baseball. As I mentioned, Monday is Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. And then also on Monday, you got the College World Series Championship, Texas A&M and Tennessee. Your boy's been in fuego. I am 9-2 against the spread in my College World Series bets. I did have Texas A&M to win the whole thing before the tournament even started, and I kind of like A&M on the bump in Game 3 on Monday. Of course, with Tennessee firing their biggest bullet on Saturday, I know A&M took Chris Cortez out of the pen, used Chris Cortez out of the pen, but I still think A&M, Evan Oschenbeck can come back. I like A&M. If you want to bet on it, you can. Of course, you check all those boosts and all the bonuses there right at the top of the page. It is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Proud sponsor here of Locked On LSU, your team every day. All right, so Jay Johnson got another big-time commitment on Saturday and had kind of got wind of this earlier in the day on Saturday, but Jacob Mayers committed out of Nicholls. And I know, please spare me. I know. A lot of LSU fans are wondering why in the world LSU continues signing all these guys from small schools. Again, I'll say it again. Baseball is measurable. It is quantifiable, especially when you're talking about pitchers. I can measure and quantify velo. I can measure spin rate on a breaking ball. I can measure horizontal break on a pitch. All of those things tell me what caliber of arm you have. Now, that doesn't mean you can pitch. Look, Cam Johnson was an elite arm this year and really struggled to throw strikes. More on him in a minute, by the way, as he has a new destination. But Jacob Mayers is an interesting story. So Jacob Mayers is a guy who went to high school at Sanoma, near in Ascension Parish, and he was all state his senior year. Helped Sanoma to a 28-6 record in the regular season, and they went to the Class 5A title game for the first time since 2004. And they defeated defending champion Barb, by the way, along the way to the title game. Well, the thing about Jacob Mayers is he wasn't very highly sought after coming out of high school, but he continued to develop. And by the time he was a freshman at Nicholls, there was an NCAA tournament, a regional game they played in Tuscaloosa at Alabama. And Jacob Mayers in that regional game got the start for Nicholls, and he handcuffed Alabama into the sixth inning. He went 5 2/3, allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, struck out 8, walked 3, but he was awesome. And he left the game when Nicholls had a lead on Alabama in Tuscaloosa in their regional. Now, Alabama would rally and they'd win that game. But Mayers proved he was very, very much capable of pitching on that level. And all he did this year in his sophomore season was come back and strike out 106 hitters, 106 in 70 2/3 innings pitched. Think about that for a minute. Well over a strikeout per innings pitched. 106 strikeouts in 70 2/3 innings pitched. So you're talking about a guy with major strikeout stuff, major swing and miss stuff. But here's the caveat. Jacob Mayers in 70 2/3 innings pitched walked 76 hitters. That led the country. He walked more hitters than any other pitcher in America. So in some respect, you can look at this as similar to what you just saw with Cam Johnson. Now, Cam Johnson is 98 from the left side, and you just don't see that very often. And the horizontal break, scouts will tell you, would be top 10 in the major leagues today. So it stings losing him. But he also had an issue with command. When he threw it over the plate, he was tough to handle. And it's the same thing here with Jacob Mayers. And look, like we talked about with a lot of these guys, it's fair to look at who they pitched against. Here's who Mayers faced in his outings in 2024. Sacred Heart, Eastern Illinois, Southern, Grambling, did pitch at Nebraska, went 4 2/3 in that game. UNO, where he struck out 12. Corpus Christi, Southeastern, Northwestern State, Southern Miss, Houston Christian, Louisiana Tech, Southern again, Incarnate Word, Lamar, McNeese, Corpus Christi, and then Irvine. So, and Irvine was in the regional, and he didn't make it out of the second inning. But the stuff is undeniable. The question is, can Nate Yeske work with him to command it? If he can, then you have something special there. there's also the component just looking at numbers, just straight numbers right now with the LSU pitching staff, right? So, and this is why they can't be done yet. So let's go. We've done this before, but let's look at just sheer numbers of who LSU is losing. Okay. First of all, Nate Ackenhausen, Christian Little, Will Helmers. Those three are out of eligibility. Okay. So you're losing those three. Gage Jump, Luke Holman, Thatcher Hurd, Fidel Ulloa, Justin Lohr, they're all going to sign pro contracts. Okay. So they're going to be gone as well. So those 8 are done. And then look at the pitchers you've lost in the portal. Recently, MJ Seo, Javen Coleman, Sam Dutton, Cam Johnson, Aiden Moffitt, Micah Bucknam, and Nick Bronzini. That's 7 more. So that's 15 pitchers that you've lost already. 15 on your 40-man roster. You've lost 15 pitchers already, and we don't know what's going to happen with Griffin Herring. Right? Is he going to return next year, or does he sign a pro contract? We'll see what happens in the draft. Okay, but you're losing at least 15 pitchers. Now, so far in the portal, you've landed 5 with the news today or the news on Sunday, I should say, of Jacob Mayers. Luke Hayden from Indiana State, Devin Sheeran, who's, is rated the number 3 overall player in the transfer portal. There's 100 guy from Mount St. Mary's. Zach Cohen, who is the ace of the Wofford staff. And then Chandler Dorsey, who is the closer from South Florida, who could very well, basically he factors to be Aiden Moffitt, 97, 98 from the right side, just a more experienced Aiden Moffitt. So you've landed 4. And now Jacob Mayers makes 5. So you've landed 5 out of the portal. You've lost 15. Now, you can confidently say that 4 of your high school signees are going to make it to campus. We're not really super optimistic about William Schmidt or Boston Bateman, but maybe you get lucky. We'll see. But with who you have coming back, right? You had Chase Shores coming off of injury. Got Cade Anderson for his sophomore year. We hope Griffin Herring will be there and able. Gavin Guidry will be back out of your bullpen apparently as well. But you still can't be done. You can't be done because you're going to need depth. You're going to need arms. Again, you lost 15 guys off this team. But I want to remind you, there's no sense in panicking because it's still early. Like you didn't get Gage Jump until the second week of July last year. You didn't get Paul Skeens 2 years ago until July 29th. So you have a long way to go to continue building the roster. But the great news for LSU, the undeniably great news for LSU, is that Jay Johnson is your coach. And you've got the best coach and the best recruiter in college baseball doing work. And he's going to continue building out this class. So we're going to put a button on this episode with a little more baseball talk because Cam Johnson has announced his destination. It's interesting. I'll tell you why. And I did get wind of another target that LSU has in the portal. Again, not someone that's definitively coming to LSU, but someone that I know LSU has reached out to. And I'll tell you about him when we continue right here on Locked on LSU, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Love telling you about eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, as we put a button here on this edition of Locked on LSU as we begin a new week, there's a couple of other baseball notes that I want to get to. One is Cam Johnson. So we learned that Cam Johnson, the dynamite LSU lefty, who at the time was the highest rated LSU signee that had ever showed up on campus, Cam Johnson's going to Oklahoma. And I kind of got a little bit of a word as to why he chose Oklahoma. And now that Cam Johnson isn't here anymore, I think we could probably just be a little more transparent about things that I've kind of tap danced around since he's been on campus. Look, Cam Johnson really struggled when the lights came on and he was pitching in front of 10,000 people, period. I did not go out to fall ball, full disclosure. When it's fall, I am neck deep, maybe nose deep into LSU football, and I just can't justify being out at the box watching fall scrimmages. But I have a lot of people I trust that do. Scouts and coaches and a lot of different player personnel people. And the word on Cam Johnson was he was unhittable. They did an inter-squad scrimmage against ULL, and it was unfair. But Cam Johnson was pitching in front of an empty Alec Box Stadium, similar to when he was in high school at IMG. He was unfair. The tricky part for Cam Johnson is when he got to LSU and they gave him the ball on the bump in front of 10,000 people, the moment was too big for him. And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, and not everybody is ready to make that gigantic leap from pitching in front of family and friends in high school to pitching in front of 10,000, 11,000 people at Alec Box Stadium on TV and people going crazy. And it ate him up a little bit. When he was on, he was awesome. And you could see flashes. You could see the arm talent. The command wasn't there. So he's going to Oklahoma where the head coach is Skip Johnson. And Skip Johnson is sort of this noted left-handed pitcher guru. As a matter of fact, he's Clayton Kershaw's like personal pitching coach. So Cam Johnson being a dynamic lefty, this makes a lot of sense. You go work with someone who is an established, noted pitching coach who specializes in working with lefties. And the other thing that Oklahoma told Cam Johnson on the recruiting trail was, look, you're never going to play in front of more than 2,500 people here. And it's not like LSU where, I mean, keep in mind how the season went for Cam Johnson, really because of LSU. I mean, LSU struggled so much in the first half of conference play. I mean, we all know the story. They were 3-12 at the halfway point. And when Cam Johnson couldn't throw strikes, Jay Johnson couldn't justify continuing to put him out there. I mean, LSU needed to win games, and they needed guys they could rely on. So Jay Johnson shortened his pitching staff, and who he counted on, Cam Johnson wasn't in that number. He wasn't on the postseason roster. So Skip Johnson at Oklahoma told him effectively, look, we're going to keep throwing you out there. We're going to get you innings. It's not like it is at LSU. It's just a different level of pressure, which is true. LSU has a different level of pressure than literally anywhere else. And there's a lot of great programs where there's a lot of pressure to win, no doubt, where coaches get fired and fans have big expectations and pay money and boosters and all that stuff, but it's just different at LSU. We all know that intuitively. So Skip Johnson could tell me, look, you specialize in working with left-handed pitchers, and you're not going to have quite the pressure you did at LSU, and we're going to keep getting you innings. So one other thing worth mentioning is LSU does play at Oklahoma in 2025. So while you wish Cam Johnson well, it would really, really suck if LSU went to Norman in 2025 and Cam Johnson shoved against LSU. But just one worth keeping in mind. Cam Johnson is going to be a member of the Oklahoma Sooners. One other name to keep an eye on in the portal. Late last week, Connor Bear Harrison, LSU may have another Bear on the roster. Connor Bear Harrison entered the transfer portal. He's from California, out in Danville. Played for De La Salle in high school, very, very famous athletic high school. And De La Salle's the program that had like the 10-year winning streak in football some time ago. But Harrison went to St. Mary's out in California, the Gales, in the Southwest Conference, the West Coast Conference. Forgive me, the West Coast Conference this past year. And as a true freshman, he caught for St. Mary's and hit 322 with 8 homers. Again, as a true freshman, he caught 43 games, starting 42 of them, hit 322 with 8 homers, and was freshman all conference this year. So what I don't know, I want to be very clear about this. By the way, Harrison, his brother is Kyle Harrison, who plays for the San Francisco Giants. So he's got a good baseball pedigree as well. But I want to be very clear. I do not know if Harrison is leaning toward LSU. I do not know if he's going to pick LSU. I don't know if he's coming for a visit for LSU. What I do know, just being completely transparent, I do know LSU has made contact and has reached out. And it makes sense. Keep in mind, you're feeling good about getting Blaze Priester on campus to be your starting catcher next year. You got to sweat the draft, but you're feeling good. Cade Arambidi, before his senior year, would have been a top 10 pick in this year's draft. Certainly would have been a first-round pick in this year's draft. Struggled a bit in his senior year. Looks like he's going to end up on campus, but you're going to sweat that one out as well. You need a third option at catcher. And Luis Hernandez, the Indiana State transfer, looks like he's more of a DH first baseman and not going to be an option at catcher. So it is likely LSU is going to add a third catcher because you need to. You've got to add a third catcher here. So Bear Harrison would make sense. It would be great because you'd have another power hitter named Bear who would be on campus. And because he just finished his freshman year, he's got a couple of years remaining. So in theory, he could, if he comes in as a sophomore, platoon at catcher and then maybe be ready to take over or compete with Aaron Beatty to take over in the 2026 season if it played out that way. I know that's getting way ahead of ourselves, but the bottom line is you can't go into a season with just two catchers. I mean, you're a turned ankle away or an injury away from having just one guy. So you've got to add another catcher. And Bear Harrison is a guy that LSU has reached out to. And Jay Johnson, by the way, Jay Johnson does have a relationship with St. Mary's coach from his time out on the West Coast when Jay Johnson was at San Diego and at Arizona. So there's some synergies there. We'll see if that can happen. But want to keep an eye on is Bear Harrison of St. Mary's, who LSU has reached out to. Okay, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked on LSU. Presented by FanDuel. As I always encourage you, if you are new, please do us a favor, subscribe up on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here weekdays and bonus content on the weekends as well for Locked on LSU, your team every day.